Two big winter storms are coming to the United States over the next couple of days, and we are anticipating a lot of snowfall and ice accumulation from areas like the southern and central plains, back into the Midwest, into the Ohio Valley, and also through the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, in addition to the return of some severe weather, which includes the threat of tornadoes tomorrow, and we may even see more severe weather on Saturday. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about these winter storms and why there have been even more changes to the forecast. We'll begin with what's happening out there right now, and we have a large winter storm forming right now back over in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. This area of streaming moisture is all coming from the Pacific Ocean, and we are only anticipating a lot of snow and even some ice accumulation back over in the Mid-Atlantic tonight. Many areas in western Virginia have actually already gone up to a foot of snow. That's mostly in the higher elevations, but it gives you an idea of the power of this winter storm. So we are anticipating many areas in southern Maryland and parts of central and northern Virginia just over the next 24 hours to pick up as much as 8 to 11 inches of snowfall. So quite a bit of snow is going to be coming to those areas. And we are also monitoring the risk of severe weather as we go into tomorrow back over in the deep south and the southeast, and we'll talk more about that here in just a moment. And we also have another winter storm that'll be forming here over the next 12 hours in the central plains. This is expected to bring a lot of snowfall and even more snow than many areas have even seen this winter back over in the Midwest. However, some things have been changing to this forecast in terms of how much snow we're going to see and exactly where the worst of the snowfall will fall. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. It is pretty early into the winter storm that we are right now seeing in the Mid-Atlantic, but we already have a ton of snowfall reports coming out, especially in the higher elevations, where upwards of 12.5 inches has fallen back over in Hollins, Virginia. Most areas that are more into the valleys, like Richmond, for example, and back through Roanoke, have only seen around 1 to 4 inches of snow thus far, but that number is only going to be increasing as the majority of the snowfall will be falling late this evening and throughout the overnight hours, and it'll eventually taper down around lunchtime tomorrow. And you know we have a lot of snow and ice coming when there's a ton of different wintry weather colors on the map. We do have a bunch of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in effect. We have a winter storm that's happening right now into tomorrow morning. Winter storm warnings in effect in the pink, which includes parts of West Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland. And also we have winter weather advisories in the purple. That is also for tonight's event, and some of the winter weather advisories we have in New York are actually going to be for what's upcoming as we go into Thursday. Now, this is our winter storm Wednesday into Thursday. This entire area is expecting some level of snow or even ice accumulation. We have winter weather advisories as far south as the Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma. Winter storm warnings are in effect for most of the central plains, including northern Kansas, the Kansas City Metro, northern Missouri, southern and eastern Iowa, and back into western Illinois. One thing that is starting to downtrend, we've been noticing this, is back over here in parts of the Midwest. The National Weather Service has gone ahead and put only winter weather advisories in effect, which means a range of around 3 to 6 inches of snow will be possible, where the majority of the snowfall is going to be falling tomorrow, where those heaviest bands move through. And we're going to talk more about exactly how much snow you can expect in just a moment, but in general, things have been downtrending a little bit back over in the Midwest. Now let's talk more about these two winter storms that are impacting the United States over the next couple of days, and we'll begin with what's happening out there tonight. Heavy snow will continue across areas like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and even back into Virginia. There will be a brief period where that freezing line will lift to the north, and that means some freezing rain and sleet will be possible, even back up into southern Maryland and southern parts of Delaware. So stay weather aware there. If you're traveling on the roadways, don't be surprised if there's ice out there. Eventually, as we get closer to tomorrow morning, all of that snow is moving offshore. There will still be some light freezing rain, sleet, and snow out there, even during the morning hours tomorrow. Just the majority of the heaviest precipitation will be moving offshore. And while all that is happening, we're going to have another large winter storm forming back over in the central and southern plains tomorrow morning. Heavy snowfall is expected back over in eastern Kansas and western Missouri. Some freezing rain and sleet will also be possible back through parts of central Oklahoma and even into the Texas Panhandle. And eventually, as we go later into the morning hours, notice how quickly this is going to be moving to the northeast. So this is going to be a really quick shot, I think, of heavy snowfall that's going to be really rolling across areas like East Kansas and eventually going into western Illinois. But another thing I've been noticing here over the last 12 hours is that this does not appear to be as heavy of snowfall on the northern side of this. It looks like we're going to be dealing with some drier air on the northern side of this winter storm, which may at the end limit the amount of snowfall some areas do see. And we're going to talk more about those specific details in terms of how much snow you can expect here in just a moment. But overall, this has been downtrending a little bit. Obviously, it could uptrend again by tomorrow morning. It's very possible. I would still be preparing for at least around 5 to 10 inches for many of these areas, but there's a chance the totals end up being lower in a lot of areas if dry air starts to siphon into that core of heavy snowfall. Eventually, by lunch lunchtime tomorrow, that heaviest snowfall will be in eastern Illinois, very far northwestern Indiana, and southwestern Michigan. Light to moderate snowfall elsewhere continues, so this is not nearly as significant as the winter storm we had back in January in areas like the Central Plains, but still notable. Eventually, by 3 to 4 o'clock, that snowfall continues across Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, and even as far west as Missouri. Overall, light to moderate snowfall at this point. A few bands of heavier snow will be possible in northern Indiana, which may elevate some snowfall accumulation there. Sleet and freezing rain all happening in this little band across Missouri, back into the northern Ohio Valley, and also into the Appalachian Mountains. And then eventually, as we get closer to sunset and just after sunset, majority of the snowfall is either in Canada, New England, or back over in the far northern Ohio Valley. And then eventually, as we go into the overnight hours, there will be freezing rain and sleet in central New England. On the flip side, heavy snowfall back over in northern and northeastern New England before eventually this all moves out. I do want to point out as well with this winter storm that there is an elevated risk for severe weather tomorrow in the deep south. There is a chance that we go live for both the winter storm and the severe weather threat tomorrow on this channel. It's 50-50 right now. We'll see what happens when we wake up tomorrow, but make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if we do go live tomorrow. Now let's talk more about how much snowfall you can expect, and we'll begin with the mid-Atlantic, as this is where we're dealing with a winter storm right now. Most areas will see an additional 1 to 3 inches of snow back through the Appalachian Mountains and into New Jersey. This is where we're expecting the core of the heaviest snowfall. We're still expecting 4 to 8 inches of snow across parts of Virginia, Maryland, and also back through Delaware and extreme southern New Jersey, even back up into southern New England and Long Island. I would anticipate around a coating to even upwards of 3 inches of snowfall in these areas, so definitely something to look forward to if you want some snowfall in those areas. In terms of ice accumulation, the majority of this is going to be across central and southern Virginia. Even though a little bit of sleet and freezing rain could make its way back up into southern Maryland, it will likely not accumulate to anything very significant, at least when it comes to like power outages, for example, but there could be some slick spots on the roadways tomorrow morning, so take it slow out there. And then back over in the higher elevations near the Appalachian Mountains, a few areas will be as high as a fourth to even upwards of a half of an inch of ice accumulation, which could lead to some power outages tonight, so be prepared for that. Back over in the Central Plains in the Midwest, this forecast has been very tricky in terms of how much snowfall we can expect because it's been uptrending. It was uptrending yesterday, and now it's downtrending once again this afternoon. We do think that there will be a large swath here of around 4 to 8 inches of snowfall, mostly in northern Kansas. I honestly think this is a little bit too far to the north when it comes to snowfall accumulation, so I would drag this a little bit further down to the south and say this is the area where we're still expecting around 4 to 8 inches of snowfall accumulation. I think areas like Chicago, back over to northern Illinois, even southern Wisconsin will actually be a bit lower than that. I think 3 to 6 inches of snow is a more realistic forecast. I also think this area right here in northern Indiana and northern Ohio could actually be a little bit higher, especially further north near the Great Lakes, where we could actually see a few pockets of around 4 to 6 inches of snowfall. But with any place that is here in the Central Plains, Midwest, or the Great Lakes, I would prepare for worst case scenario, which is basically upwards of 10 inches of snowfall. I don't think we're going to see much more snow than that unless you're really back over here in northern Kansas or northern Missouri, which appears as if that'll be where the worst snowfall happens. And then back over in Iowa, I do think the majority of the significant snowfall will actually be a bit further down to the south. So if you're just south or east of Des Moines, back across parts of southern or eastern Iowa is where I anticipate there to be a range of around 4 to 8 inches of snowfall. But I think the majority of areas around central, northern, and western Iowa will be anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of snowfall. So not nearly as significant, but I would still be preparing again for worst case scenario, which for some of these areas will be as high as 7 to 8 inches of snowfall. And to put this all into probabilities, this is your chance of seeing at least 6 inches of snowfall, which is a half a foot of snowfall accumulation. The main areas that I'd be watching for that potential to be really maximized would be across northern Kansas and southern parts of Iowa, and also back over near Milwaukee, where there will be a little bit of lake effect snow on the backside of this winter storm, which will actually increase the amount of snowfall accumulation that we see there around and just north of Chicago, which would really be the only way that areas like Chicago get over 6 inches of snowfall, is if that lake effect snow is intense enough. But if it is not intense enough, we will probably stick in the 3 to 6 inch range in those areas. And even back through Michigan, there's around a 20 to 40% chance there of seeing anywhere around 6 inches of snowfall, perhaps as high as 8 to 9 inches of snowfall accumulation. Ice accumulation is also possible out of this winter storm. We're going to have a very narrow stretch from the Texas Panhandle back through the Ohio Valley, which will end up seeing a little bit of ice out of this winter storm. If you're back over in the northern Ohio Valley or even back into parts of the Northeast, a glazing upwards of a 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation will be possible, so make sure if you are traveling tomorrow, take it slow on the roadways. Unfortunately, with all these winter storms happening, we do have severe weather making a return tomorrow. There there is an elevated risk for severe weather. The Storm Prediction Center has issued a slight risk across parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. I would not be surprised if confidence grows if we do end up getting a small 10% hatched risk back over in the deep south, which means that there would be a potential for strong tornadoes. And in general, it's a conditional risk, but there is a chance for strong tornadoes no matter what happens when it comes to the SPC outlook for tomorrow. It's just going to depend on if we get prefrontal convection during the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow. So make sure you're prepared for this. The main concern being damaging winds and hail, but again, tornadoes being a possibility. A large 5% tornado risk is in place here. And again, there's a pretty good chance we'll be live tomorrow if this does end up materializing. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if and when we do go live. Saturday looks like we are almost undoubtedly going to be live, as we have a large slight risk across Texas back into Tennessee. This will likely be even larger. I would expect a marginal threat that goes all the way back up even into parts of Kentucky, maybe as far north as southern Ohio. The overall concern on Saturday is damaging winds, hail, and several tornadoes will be possible if, again, we get prefrontal convection. It's a bit of an if right now, but right now Saturday looks to be the most concerning of these 2 days. The tornado threat for tomorrow is going to be relatively sporadic. We're watching a few different areas here in the deep south and along the Gulf Coast for this tornado risk. This is by 1 o'clock tomorrow. Wind shear and instability will be growing in parts of southern Louisiana and back into Alabama. Tornado threat could be a little bit higher during around the 1 to 4 o'clock hour back over in parts of southwestern Alabama and southeastern Mississippi. I'm also watching back over here where we're going to have a line of storms. Any prefrontal convection that can grow back over in eastern Louisiana or southern Mississippi could have a potential for an isolated strong tornado. So we're definitely going to be watching this very closely tomorrow. We will be on standby in case we have to go live for this tornado threat. Back over in Alabama and even into parts of western Florida, an isolated tornado could even occur all the way through about midnight tomorrow. So definitely something we're going to have to watch for very closely. Right now it looks to be mostly linear tomorrow afternoon, but any discrete cells that can form out here in parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, or Alabama would be having the capability of producing a few tornadoes. This is, again, the line of thunderstorms that we're going to be watching. That line is mostly going to be damaging winds, which will, again, be relatively scattered. And eventually, as we go into the evening hours, this is almost all linear, which should keep the tornado threat a bit lower during the evening hours tomorrow night. But any discrete cells that do continue could have a potential for producing a tornado. So again, we'll be on standby tomorrow in case we have to go live. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if and when we do go live. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.